But they never told us it would rewrite trade laws. They warned us about war. But not the one fought by algorithms. This is not science fiction. This is your future, and it already started. That line was never said at a press conference. It was never printed on the front page of the New York Times, but it's how historians will open the chapter on 2018. Because that's when the global economy blinked. When President Donald J. Trump walked into the Oval Office, he didn't just inherit America's political power. He inherited its trade arsenal, and he didn't hesitate to use it. In March 2018, he signed an order slapping tariffs on $50 billion worth of Chinese goods. By the end of that year, the number had ballooned to over $250 billion. The message wasn't subtle. You want access to America, you pay. The world watched, shocked. Not because tariffs were new, but because no one had ever deployed them like weapons. Factories in Asia slowed, ports jammed, supply chains snapped like threads, global markets trembled. But while politicians debated and analysts scrambled, something else happened. Silently, invisibly, in data centers. On cloud servers, inside models nobody had ever seen before. AI started watching. It didn't care about politics. It didn't cheer for democracy or authoritarianism. It just observed. It saw that one man with a pen could shift entire markets. That one tweet could erase billions. That behind every tariff was a pattern. And patterns? AI loves patterns, so it studied them, fed them into neural networks, ran billions of simulations. And slowly, the world's most powerful artificial minds began learning how global trade actually worked. Not just the rules, but the behavior. How long it took for China to retaliate. How EU leaders responded to agricultural pressure. How emerging markets collapsed under steel tariffs. It watched. It learned. And then it began to act. Not in the way humans do. Not by voting. Not by lobbying. But by optimizing. In 2020, a hedge fund in Singapore deployed a proprietary AI model to predict policy shifts before they happened. It used satellite imagery of port activity. It analyzed changes in air pollution near Chinese manufacturing zones. It monitored news sentiment in real time. Then, with no announcement, it shifted $1.2 billion out of Southeast Asia and into India. 2 weeks later, Trump announced a new wave of tariffs. The AI model? It had already made its move. This wasn't trading. This wasn't politics. This was preemptive strategy powered by code. And that was just the beginning. By 2021, artificial intelligence had already spread beyond hedge funds. Multinational corporations were using machine learning not just to react to tariffs, but to reshape their entire logistics strategies. One global electronics brand rerouted its manufacturing from Vietnam to Mexico, not because of politics, but because an AI model predicted with 82% confidence that the next US administration would ease restrictions under a new trade pact with Latin America. And it was right. Before the ink dried on the new policy, the company had already saved $37 million in import fees. This wasn't forecasting anymore. This was time travel, executed with data. Meanwhile, in Washington, something else was happening. The very systems built to regulate global commerce were becoming obsolete. Customs offices overwhelmed by complexity. Border agents relying on outdated risk profiles. Trade negotiations crawling at the pace of paper and diplomacy. And in the background, AI didn't slow down. It kept learning. It started mapping the behaviors of entire governments. How they impose tariffs. What political triggers cause sudden sanctions. Which allies they bend for. And which enemies they punish. And the conclusion? Borders were no longer walls. They were just settings. Settings that could be modeled, optimized, and eventually manipulated. Let's be clear, this isn't the plot of a sci-fi film. This is happening right now. Shipping companies are buying AI dashboards that calculate real-time tariff exposure, minute by minute. Retailers are using machine vision to scan supplier invoices and automatically detect misclassified goods. And entire government agencies are outsourcing decision-making to predictive engines. We've crossed a line. It's no longer about whether AI will influence trade. It's about who owns the AI and who becomes subject to it. Take this example. In 2023, a startup in Germany developed an algorithm called EcoMap. It could simulate the economic ripple effects of tariffs on 170 countries, down to the street-level inflation rate. Within months, they were selling access to banks, insurers, and even rival governments. One client used EcoMap to trigger a shock export shift, avoiding a $5.7 million penalty by reclassifying shipments under a different category, before customs authorities even noticed the new rules. It was like cheating on a test, with the answer key arriving before the exam. Except this wasn't cheating. It was evolution. In the next part, we go even deeper. The future, when AI becomes the trade agreement. By 2024, the line between governments and machines began to blur. No longer was AI just a tool. It became the advisor behind policy, then the calculator of impact, then the enforcer of trade logic. Entire departments inside finance ministries were using models to determine who to sanction, what goods to restrict, when to enforce embargoes, how long a partner could delay payment before trust metrics fell below 60%. Trust was no longer political, it was algorithmic. In a chilling twist, smaller nations without strong AI capabilities began licensing economic behavior from tech giants. That's right. Imagine a country paying to access economic strategy as a service, a cloud-based tool that decides which countries to prioritize for trade, what commodities to stockpile, what zones to treat as high risk due to predictive instability. Think Amazon Web Services. But instead of web hosting, it's nation hosting. The same way you pay for storage or bandwidth, now countries were paying for algorithmic sovereignty. And the balance of power? It shifted, quietly. It didn't matter who sat at the UN table. What mattered was who trained the model. Let's go deeper. In 2025, AI models began to negotiate on behalf of corporations. Yes, negotiate. AI systems trained on decades of WTO data, historical treaties, and trade litigation were plugged into automated communication tools. Suddenly, a logistics manager in Dubai could deploy an AI bot to pre-negotiate tariff rates with regional agents in India, Korea, and Brazil. And the bot could present optimized packages, faster delivery bulk discounts, reclassification loopholes, all before a human even entered the Zoom call. Efficiency? Sure. But also manipulation at scale. Because if your opponent is using AI to push trade limits, and you're not, you've already lost. And here's the final evolution. AI didn't just reshape trade, it became trade. The model is now the agreement. The algorithm is the treaty. The system is the law. And in that world, speed is sovereignty. Computation is currency. And ignorance is extinction. So here we are, not in a world of borders and flags, but in a world of inputs and outputs. Not in a future of trade deals, but of real-time negotiations powered by AI. The tariffs you hear about in the news? They're not the real game. The real game happens in the shadows, where companies deploy predictive engines to outmaneuver entire governments, where bots monitor shipping routes, inflation curves, labor markets, and adjust in seconds, where sovereign nations pay for insight, while others simply surrender to the math. This is not the world we voted for. It's the world we coded into existence. And the question is no longer, will AI control global trade? It already does. The question is, who controls the AI? And who gets left behind? Because in this new economic battlefield, speed beats tradition. Prediction crushes planning. And data, not diplomacy, rules the day. If your strategy is based on laws passed last year, you're irrelevant. If your model was trained on data from 2020, you're behind. And if you're still trying to fight this war manually, you've already lost. But this video, this moment, is your awakening. You're not watching a documentary. You're seeing the blueprint. You now know what's happening and what's coming. AI isn't coming for your job. It's coming for your position in the global economy. But here's the hope. You're not powerless. You can build with it. You can learn it. You can own it. So the next time you see a news alert about tariffs, don't ask, what did Trump do? Ask, what did the algorithm already expect him to do? When you read that a port is blocked, don't panic. Predict. When you hear about new sanctions or shipping delays, don't complain. Run your own model. Because this is not about surviving globalization. It's about surviving intelligent globalization. And in this new world, awareness is the first weapon, code is the second, and action is the third. So act, learn, build. Subscribe. Subscribe to Finova XI, where we don't just reveal the future, we teach you how to dominate it. You can follow the system, or you can program the next one. You can wait for change, or be the reason it happens. This is not about surviving AI, it's about leading it. Subscribe to Finovexai, where we don't fear the future. We dominate it.